Hello Juche music person called first name. Mrs. last name. It's been a long time, but Juche are still making musics. We are very happy to announce the release of our second full-length music album called Echo Title. We would love it if first name download and listen to new album. The album can be obtained digitally for Name Your Price from Bandcamp. Get it free. A limited edition LP vinyl 33 and 1/3 RPM is also available. Consider it. Peace, love, and strange sample-based music. Sincerely, Jack of Juche.
Hello everyone, welcome to Nursery Podcast. My name's Lee Boyle.
My name is Brandon Martin.
Otherwise known as
DrGoo.
So, DrGoo. If you guys are listeners from Youngstown, you probably heard the name here and there. DJing, specializing in his own creative works where he samples and makes his own beats in most cases, correct?
Yes.
And then dubstep kind of works its way in and things like that. So people, if you're in Youngstown, more than likely, man, we're a small enough community. I think I can safely say Youngstown listeners may have caught you somewhere, whether it was in between band sets or DJing your own gig for somebody's party or straight up DJ sets that were all focused on dance and stuff.
Yeah.
So what's it like to DJ in Youngstown, man?
It's very weird, actually. It's because Youngstown is a very diverse area, so like you'll randomly like be at like one bar and like they'll just want like straight hip hop, like they want current straight like whatever's popping at the time, and then like you might go to like Austin Town where there'll be a bunch of people who want country music or like something that like will just be like way out of left field, like something from the 80s or like
Whoa, so how far do you have to bend over backwards but still maintain a little bit of creativity? Like where's that line for you?
Well, I mean, it's all in just sort of like I've kind of given up on necessarily like every set has to be like super creative. Like sometimes it's just like I'm going in and I'm going to get paid. Like you have to think that way, or else like you'll drive yourself crazy because like someone will like not care anything about like what you're doing. Like
So the infamous or however you want to look at it, like the kind of, you hear a lot of people who are kind of big in Hollywood or New York say the same thing you just said, where they say, like on a large scale, they're like, I made this silly family comedy movie so I could go then make this indie movie that I really think touched people.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of mentality. So it goes up the ladder into all scenarios. But tell me about, say, okay, you just play a gig where someone's like, give us only contemporary hip hop. Don't try anything funny. And then you go to your next gig, and that gig they're like, hey, we're gonna do something. We're gonna have like dancers, and we want them to improv to you, so go nuts. What's the gig where you go nuts like? What's your ideal gig where you do everything you created?
I mean, like dance music sets or EDM sets.
That's what you like the best.
Yeah, that's what I like the best because it's just sort of like you've a lot of times, at least I work on a set. So like I'll work on a set like for that week, and then like it'll be songs that like I've made that go together with other songs, and then and like it'll just be me flipping through songs and like figuring out where the best parts of the songs fit with the other parts of the songs, what effects I should use, but
you're not like example like Girl Talk. You've put out albums full of basically originals where I remember somebody who local listeners might know from burlesque shows in the zoo, Bernadette Lim was like a guest vocalist somewhere on it.
Tell me, babe, are you ready for it now? Don't ask me where, what, when, and how. Just gotta move with my hips now. We're falling down, but we don't touch the ground. I'll make you feel good, make you
stuff see the light of day during?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. So that
Yeah.
stuff comes around and rotates. And
Yeah.
stuff. Well, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. That's gotta. Am I wrong in assuming that's your best moments of your?
Yeah,
Those are your favorites.
Especially when like I'll play like something like maybe like professional. I don't want to. I hate using that word, but
No,
like
it's
it'll
fine.
be like I'll play like, let's say a Diplo song or something, and people are dancing. Then I'll like switch over to my song, and like people like lose their minds, and it's like that's like the best feeling.
That's probably the best thing you can possibly hope for, right? Because even the biggest fans aren't going to notice all the awesome detail you
Yeah.
put in. Like if you're like, I remixed one of my remixes, they're not gonna, they're not gonna know, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, man. And then for listeners who want to know, DrGoo, stylized sometimes all one word. It's
Yeah,
DrGoo.
DrGoo, yeah.
So where can they find you?
SoundCloud, Spotify, Beatport. Beatport's the big one.
Hey, we just got a celebrity guest in the house. My friend Pepe Parrish, that you guys might know from our band Third Class, is in the house. Pepe, what are you doing?
I was just riding my bike by.
That's cool. So as opposed to what Pepe and I do, where we lug around a drum set in a trailer and bring a bass amp in and look like dinosaurs compared to somebody with a low overhead who brings a laptop and plugs in. Where's the line there? Like, I can tell I see you at rock shows. I see you at like band shows and stuff. So how much live type band stuff influences you? Or are you in this world of like EDM and that's it? You know what I mean?
Man, like everything influences me. I actually have obviously I have the song with Bernadette. I also have a song with Jenna Brzezinski. I don't know if you know who she is, but she,
You know who she is?
yeah,
Violin? Yeah, she's cool.
Yeah, actually, one of the songs on there is a Jenna song.
On the one you gave me?
She was in Giants of Gender.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, let's hear that one right now. And we're back. I edit. So
Yeah, no,
that one will
got
be
it.
there. Oh yeah, and by the way, man, thanks for being interested in the podcast to come on. Because I can't tell you how many people come off like you do, but then are really like, well, I don't really think I'm gonna do it. You know, like I like that you actually cared and listened and stuff. Like, not that I expect that, but it's a nice little bonus. You seem like you're connected, and I think that's why I ask you that question about like how much other people influence.
Oh yeah, like everything influences me. And working in the song that Jenna and I did is actually going to be on this this LP that is going to be called like the new hip hop. And so like I don't know how much you've like listened to like KRS-One talk about hip hop. Like
just a little, not a whole lot. I mean, I like KRS-One, but I haven't heard the philosophy.
Okay, yeah, he has like this. It basically comes down to like we are hip hop. So like what is happening right now, not so much necessarily what happens on BET or MTV or anything, but like what is happening in your home state or town or whatever. Like what are you gonna. And so like if you think that hip hop sucks or you think that hip hop is like bad or whatever, like you can change that. Like you don't have to wait on like some record exec to like tell you this is now what we're gonna do. Like you can put on shows, you can put out music and like.
Okay.
I like that idea. It makes you feel more like you're part of what's going on. Too many people feel too much like they're outside of something looking in, and you're like, maybe it's on a different scale, but you're definitely, if you're doing something to change it, you're part of it.
Yeah.
So
KRS-One has always seemed like kind of if Randy Newman is to like ballad writing, KRS-One kind of seems like his same stance in hip hop, where he never totally like cracked the huge like, but he's so well respected among musicians that he's gotten this leg up, like similar to like Randy Newman gets a leg up from Paul Simon often because everyone knows Paul Simon. KRS-One gets a leg up from Public Enemy, gets a leg up from like a lot of like larger names. And so, and I'm not saying that means he's not as good and he has to be promoted by somebody else, but it's just that it's most likely because he's doing exactly what he wants more so than the other
people
acts.
are,
like, and hey, less people like it, but more people connect, right? That's the idea. It's like less like volume buy his albums, I guess. But the people that are fans are way more into.
And
100% more into them.
Sells out shows all the time. So
I'm sure I mean, he's still huge. But it's like Jay's. I don't know. I feel like Jay-Z fan. He's great, but Jay-Z fans don't love Jay-Z as much as KRS-One fans love KRS-One. It's that kind of idea, I suppose. That's just speculation, obviously. But because we're in a small place in Youngstown, I see why KRS-One's comments relate. But more having to do with just Ohio. What's the scene for you like here?
I mean, like, Youngstown is very, like, wide open. Like, that's what I see, is just sort of, like, there's, at any given time, like, most bars will be okay with you bringing in, like, 100 people for, like, whatever. Like, if you say, I can bring in 100 people, they'll, like, let you do whatever. And so, like, I see that a lot of people really like the music, but it's not really happening very often. So, like...
The 100 people wasn't happening?
No, just like the events aren't happening.
Oh, the events. I see.
So like, I run a show on Thursday called Flow at the Federal, which is like, it's once a month Thursday. I play, and then I'll get like a person from Akron or Pittsburgh or something. They'll play, and then like some person locally will play as well, and you get really good turnout from it. And,
that's great.
Yeah. And there's this other kid, he does like bigger shows. He'll like bring in like headliners who cost like thousands of dollars, and like those,
Boom at Bob's, those things they always fly in like people from California, things like it's crazy, man. I mean, that's great that they're coming to Youngstown, but it's a different world.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is, and like lots of people come to those too. So it's like I can see where we can do more, but like it's cool. It's cool in that sense that it's just like you could do basically whatever.
And you describe it as wide open, and you strike me as the same. But is there any thing that you're a snob about, where you draw the line? Like, no judgment from me, but is there anything where you're like, that's just douchebag music, I don't do that? You know what I'm talking about? Like,
No, I mean, like, there's definitely, like...
stoner music, you know, that,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Is there anything you're like, I'm above this? Like, you know,
Like, I wouldn't
you're allowed to say it, you know?
I wouldn't say I'm above it. I always, like, personally, I am, like, one of those people who, like, I can't, like, play, like, one genre of music, like, a whole set. So, like, a lot of people, they'll be like, well, I am, like, a tech house DJ, which is, like, there's house music, and then there's deep house music, and then there's, like, this tech house, and then there's, like, which is all, like, to me, like, the same thing.
Well, good. It's nice to hear someone coming from that background say that.
Yeah, to me, it's all the same. Like, I get the nuances, but, like, to play, like, a whole, like, hour of, like, less nuances, it's like, oh, like, I don't, like...
Yeah.
But that's just, like, a personal thing. Like, I would never be, like, oh, man, like, I do so much better than that guy. Like, it would just be kind of be like, yeah, like, not for me type of thing.
There's those few genres where people go, they're so specific that you can't help but go outside of that. Like reggae, way too limited. Ragtime is way limited.
Yeah.
Like ska is way limited. Upstroke only. No, every ska band has gone outside of.
Yeah.
And if they haven't, that's horrible. You know.
Yeah, I feel like I work with a lot of people who are big reggae fans, and we always just kind of like tease each other about reggae in general. I'm always saying that I don't like reggae, and it's not that I actually don't like reggae. It's that a lot of reggae bands that I like a few of their songs a lot get old really fast because it's the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the term butt rock?
Yes.
I honestly don't even know, but a lot of people I work with use the term butt rock a lot, and it always makes me laugh, and I'm like, what is that? And they're like, it's just music we don't like. And I'm like, I don't understand.
I've heard it to, like, refer to, like, Buck Cherry, like, the Crazy Bitch song. And,
Right.
Yeah.
like...
Nickelback or something? Okay.
Like, stuff that's, like...
It seems like...
like white people's music. Like...
Yeah, it seems like a pretty general term that doesn't have, like, an actual, like... It doesn't have an actual, like, meaning to it, but everybody kind of agrees on the same sound that it pertains to.
Yeah, you like agreeing that something's bad is a lot easier than agreeing like what genre something is. It's weird. It's like there are a lot of people that don't like Nickelback. There's more that like them, but like it does seem like that it's easier to just be like, that's stupid. That we call that idiot rock or butt rock or whatever, you know, because I remember getting in these pointless conversations online with people about what mainstream and what is mainstream and what isn't and stuff, and that's that can go anywhere. What's that mean? Are you talking about one stream that you prefer over the other? Are you talking about collective consciousness that all flow in eventually? You know, you can go nuts with it. You can talk about technicalities and sales. You can talk about, no, this is the consciousness. We were talking about that as pertaining to Radiohead, which is like this whole deep, ridiculous conversation, which is fine. It's fun. Yeah. It's not consequential, but it's more, sadly, it's always easier to be... It's always easier to be, like, to gang up on negative. Like, it's always easier to be like, we all agree this is horrible. We don't all agree this is awesome, but we all agree this is It's sad. I wish the world wasn't like that, but it's like...
What's weird, though, is that it's not necessarily... Because somebody was getting defensive because you called Radiohead mainstream, but you didn't mean it in a bad way, but some people just hear the word mainstream and they think that that's a...
Right, they're like, I'm not mainstream. I'm not mainstream. And I'm like, oh, good. I'm sure there aren't like literally millions of other 30-year-old white guys also saying the same thing as you, and I'm sure that doesn't make you all mainstream. You know what I mean? Like, and again, this isn't making fun of predictability as it is as much as maybe leaning into it and being okay with it. Yeah, I like Adam Sandler movies. Okay, it's okay. Like you know, like yeah, it's all right, man.
I know that. We can't be friends anymore.
I know, like no one, I understand. Like I totally, that's an exception to the rule. That's like Nickelback of comedy. That's butt comedy.
But comedy. Yeah.
But back to electronic music. I'm glad actually that you're here, Pepe, because me and him had this history where we checked out the Crystal Method, Chemical Brothers, Daft
Okay.
Punk when we were real young. Like, I guess 96 through 99, we liked a lot of electronic music. We loved the Chemical Brothers. We loved Homework by Daft Punk. We listened to that a lot, and we kind of dabbled in the Trainspotting soundtrack and all this weird, like, I don't know if you're familiar with any of that kind of stuff, but like we listened to Born Slippy a lot by the Underworld, and just weird like drug music that we didn't understand was drug music or whatever. And now that stuff is falling flat to me. When I go back, it doesn't hold up at all. Do you have those same fears for modern electronic music, which I find to be a lot better, but I can't tell if I find it better if it's because it's the moment or you know what I mean?
I grew up kind of listening to electronic music, but
Did
like
you?
not really like liking it. So like you hear certain things and it's just sort of like okay, like
some of it's like,
whatever.
oh, they were experimenting and they didn't quite have the technology
Yeah,
yet, but
and some, I don't know, like for me the big thing when I first like heard something I liked, it was just sort of like the drop, I guess, is the thing that like was just like, oh wow, like just sort of like, because I started off making hip-hop beats, and so like if you ever just make hip-hop beats, like a lot of times they sound a lot like they are just kind of like the same loop over and over and over again, and so like you'll have like the same like 8 counts of something, and like the next 8 counts is like a little bit different, and you go back, and it's yeah. And so like I was like experimenting with like trying different ways of like making it more dynamic, but like when I was experimenting, some of it was awful, some of it was whatever. Then like I heard like dubstep. Well, first I heard Beats Antique. I don't know if you know who they are.
yeah, a mutual friend of ours, Crystal, introduced them.
yeah,
They're not
Crystal.
totally my thing, but I like what they do.
Yeah.
I like their style.
Yeah.
Fine, you know.
And-
they're kind of almost too wild for me. You know, like
Yeah.
they're like kind of like hit hard. You know.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And so I was dancing at the time, and I met Jennifer Neal through like just dancing, and then like
Tribe of VS.
yeah, and she was really big into Beats Antique, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like exactly what I'm shooting for.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like
I've heard enough of you to think that like there's some offshoot where I like your music better than Beats Antique.
oh wow.
So I don't know if it's because you took some edge off somewhere or something, but maybe it's because of your guest vocal like mentality, but it feels like you took a little bit of an edge off. But I mean, I'm admittedly not up to date on your music, so I'll be excited to edit this podcast together
Okay.
to see what else is going on. Oh yeah, by the way, you said people were gonna hear something called, what was it, rap? What was the name of the album?
New Hip Hop.
New Hip Hop?
Yeah.
And then what was the name of the song that we played earlier so people can look it up later?
Where You Live,
Where You Live.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Featuring,
Jenna. Yeah, Jenna Planks.
I should have said that right when the song
Yeah.
played, just so people can look it up later. But you mentioned growing up in general, like you said, growing up listening to electronic music. What was
Yeah.
childhood like for you otherwise, other than music?
I mean, like, I was very creative, so I was an only child, basically. And so, like, my parents always, or my mother really, like, kind of pushed me in, like, everything. So, like, it was like, hey, you want to play soccer? Hey, you want to take tap lessons? Hey, you want to, like, be in
Oh, you can
plays?
tap dance.
Yeah, I
That's
can
right.
tap
I remember
dance.
that. I forgot
be
that you
in-
can do that.
You want to be in plays? Hey, and like, yeah, I wanted to do everything actually, and I ended up doing
lot.
everything. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
That
Yeah,
must be why
I
you're
was-
gigging so much now. Did you say you play about 100 shows a year or so?
yeah, for about.
I've never
so,
come
yeah.
close to that, you know, with the band. Or, man, that's insane to me. Why do you say basically only child?
Because I have a sister. Like, she lived with my grandmother, and so like, I mean, I knew about her, and like we had like we spent time together and stuff, but it was just sort of like I spent a lot of time by myself and she was 7 years older than I was as well, so like, so yeah, so I spent a lot of time by myself, and so
That's cool.
Yeah.
So was there any room for a religious connotation in your rearing?
yeah,
What was it? Christianity?
Yeah, Christianity.
How much did that affect you?
A lot, actually. I mean, even I'm still very Christian, but like it was a lot, and like not so much necessarily like a lot of people hear Christian and they think like judging and like things like that, but just sort of like in the idea of just sort of like we all are like equal and we all are like deserve like basic rights and everything, and like just sort of like how can you think that you're better than another person when
Kind of like Methodist or something, like when people were just kind of more like, yeah, we go to church sometimes. What's it with? Was it like just lighter as far as traditions and stuff too?
Well, no, I mean like my mother was a pastor, and so
it wasn't that you weren't okay.
Yeah. And so, but
even sometimes families like that, sometimes it's surprising how cool they are about stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, just sort of like, and like I'm now more leaning towards Episcopal, and they're very philosophical, I guess.
Okay.
And so like they'll have like things that are kind of like Bible studies where they'll just say, we're going to talk about the other, and like that's all it is. And so like people then start like thinking about like what does the other mean, like, and so it goes into like discussions about race, politics, like just all over the place, and it's like probably one of my favorite things that like I've been a part of.
That's cool.
It's cool that you kept your religion for one, but also it sounds like you kind of made it your own, because I have a lot of friends who have parents who are pastors, and it seems like they all kind of go through a phase where they feel the need to be like rebellious against it because it was their parents who were pastors, and a lot of them have a hard time either finding religion again in general, or just like find something completely different, or I don't know. It seems like sometimes that forces them to like lose their religion, and not always. I mean, I obviously have friends that found their way back to whatever they started at, but I just think it's cool that you were able to hold on to it and make it your own.
Did you have like, unbeknownst to us, did you have a phase where you were like
Not really.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
like I've always kind of been like very, and like it's not even so much like I needed, because like it's all like religion is all about feelings and like faith in like certain things, and so like I've always like had that faith. It wasn't necessarily like based on like any like concrete and anything, but it was just sort of like, I know that when I think about certain things and I do certain things, like I feel better about, and like that's probably the best I can explain it, is just sort of like when I think about certain things and I do certain things, it makes me feel better.
Sure.
And so like that's kind of just like I've gone through my whole life just like that, just sort of
Kind of like be a better person, and you'll feel better about the person you are.
So that stuff oftentimes gets heightened when something big happens. Have you had any, like, that you're willing to talk about on a podcast, obviously, like huge hardcore tragedies or anything, like car accident, loss of a loved one, like a lot of things like that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I've lost people, and but it's never been really like a religious experience. Whenever I lose someone, it's always been kind of like I don't know, like I think the most recent big like death would be oh my gosh, I can't even think of what his name is. This is sad.
That's okay. I kind of like worked you up into a weird
but
place, so I don't blame you for taking a moment.
Matt Latanzi. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah.
And so like Matt dated one of my friends, and he was like kind of a really like probably one of the best person I've seen my friend date. And like he's always been really super nice to me, and in fact like I go through times where like I just work on music all the time, and then like like I might like literally work like every day and like not do anything but like work on music and go to sleep, and then maybe DJ and then work on music, go to sleep. And so like that, you start to get kind of weird about like going out sometimes when you just like go out and you've just been working on music all day and like working by yourself on music. And so like I don't know what it was, but it's just like super like standoffish and everything. And like Matt like came and like just talked to me for a while, and it was just like okay. And then like I like broke the shell that I was in, and like the next week he died, and it was just like,
oh wow,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't blame you for hesitating on his name, because I look back now at photos and stuff after he died to try to get some history in my head about like, oh man, like I remember this and this about Matt, but I don't quite remember if he was here for that. And he ends up in the background of like 20% more places than I thought he was in my life, and like 5 years further back than I ever thought I had met him for. Like, and so he's kind of one of those guys that kind of, because of his, I guess, a politeness that's was involved with his personality, he put himself in the background sometimes, but then he would emerge for things like you're talking about, where he'd come and be like, hey, can I talk to you about something, or do you need this, or can I suggest that? But he often made himself very like almost this, I mean, don't get me wrong, he danced and acted wild, but he kind of like would just go straight into that instead of saying, hello, my name's Matt. You know, he would just kind of be like immediately in the show.
Yeah, that's like whenever I went to a show, I'm always like one of the awkward people, just like standing in a corner, not talking to anybody. And Matt was always really good at like standing with you, feeling awkward, and
he
making
hid
you
in
feel less
plain
awkward.
sight. He would just be. That's why I didn't understand that I was going to see him in so many pictures, because I went back and saw Matt, and I was like, was he there? He was there, because he just would immediately just kind of run into the middle of the circle everywhere he went. So I almost forgot that he was the catalyst for a lot of like moments. Like I saw him at like a party I had. I saw him at this show that we played, and like weird things like that. And it was like. I mean, it's weird. He was just kind of so physically comfortable. I'm sure he danced to a lot of like electronic music everywhere. Like that. Like unfortunately, he was just so very accommodating that I forgot he was there. You know.
Yeah.
Kind of like a mom or something. Like you know when you're just like, yeah, my mom is gonna bring me this because she takes care of me. It was like that with Matt.
Yeah.
I was like, I know he's just gonna be at our show because he's such a great fan. You almost roll your eyes at kindness that is so comfortable.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But what else was I going to ask you because of that? You said, okay, so not talk to you. Go on.
All right. And so, anyways, like that whole thing, kind of, because I've always kind of taken a certain stance with Youngstown where it's just sort of like, I feel like I have to like do something for it. Like, I feel like I'm responsible. In fact, like, part of my obsession with Batman, wearing the Batman shirt right now, is just sort of like in later comics, like he is like this guy who like basically could be anywhere in the world, and he chose Gotham, which has like a really high crime rate and all of those other things, because he felt like obligated to like make the city a better place. And so like that's kind of what I feel towards Youngstown. And it's just sort of like when Matt died, it was just like one of those things where it's like, oh man, like Youngstown's really not a good place. Like it's just a very like it's a bad place. And so it's
really unfair.
And so I that made me like really like maybe question like what I'm doing here.
Yeah. That makes sense. Do you listen to Fat Man on Batman, the podcast?
No, I don't.
I didn't know if you got. It sounds like you get philosophical about him sometimes.
Well, I mean,
in certain ways.
Everything, apparently.
But like a little bit of a catalyst for this podcast was the variety of podcasts that the filmmaker Kevin Smith makes.
Okay.
And he does this one where he just goes wild about Batman. I haven't listened to it much because I don't know much about comics of any sort. but he gets very impassioned and does a lot of parallels like you just did with other things in his life, and it's cool. It's even if you're not into comics, what little I've heard, it's fun, you know. And he's also another example of who I consider the KRS-Ones and Randy Newmans of the world, where he does exactly what he wants, gets a good following, but not amazing, you know, like sells out places and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. Okay, then just to leave our listener with a lasting thing, unless there's anything else you want to touch on, do you have any advice for listeners out there, listeners that live in Ohio and want to be creative?
Just keep doing it, I guess. Like,
okay.
Like you have to. At least where I've gotten to the point is that, like, I just have to. Like, it's not even necessarily dependent on, like, if someone ever listens to it or anything. It's just sort of like, I have to, or, like, I feel sick almost. Like, just, like... And so, yeah, like, I end up just having to. So there was a time in my life where... I felt like it was just like going nowhere, and I didn't know what to do, but I still just like kept pushing through, and like as I pushed through, like things started to happen.
Okay, that's good to know. And you know Syd Barrett from Pink Floyd? You know
yes.
That guy?
Yeah.
Our third member of third class, Jack Boyle, my younger brother, has just this little bit of the Syd Barrett type thing where he's not the primary writer of the band, but when he's writing, and he works on an electronic act on the side called Juche. Well, not on the side, it's another big project of his, Juche. It's not quite dance, it's like electronic kind of like soundscapey stuff. Sometimes I see that he'll sit in the house, like you said, and work on either, whether it's third class stuff or Juche stuff. And then I see that, not always, but sometimes, like you mentioned, he works it up into a weird place where then going out is weird.
Yeah.
And it's as if he can't put the music down. Can you put it down?
Sometimes no.
Yeah.
No.
Do you have advice on how to? Have you figured it out?
I have not. It's just sort of like, if I'm really worked up into music and I'm out, I just... Because I substitute teach and I DJ, so like it's kind of a lot easier. So like I don't have to be out a lot of times, and so like
so you're like, hey, here's my advice: don't ever put it down.
Yeah. And so it's just sort of like, like if I am just in one of those moods where I can't put it down, I just don't.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on the. Yeah, I do a lot of weird little jobs. Like, we usually tend to do about 30 shows a year or less. And so last year was 50, but it's mostly lower than that. And then I, once in a while, have substitute taught and work some other jobs and work a full-time job besides. And so, like, I think those other things enable me to put music down, but I don't know if I could if I was straight up, like, my DJing or music subbing, because it sounds like you go back and forth throughout the week.
Yeah.
So, like, I understand why you might just find yourself in a world of music, because you're not going to find yourself in a world of substitute teaching. Like, that you can put down.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I became a substitute teacher. And, I mean, I've even toyed with, like, being a real teacher, but, like, just the fact that, like, at the end of the day, that's the end of the day, is, like...
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, well, can you say, look, Mom, we're on a podcast?
Look, Mom, we're on a podcast.
Anything else you'd like to tell listeners as far as where to find your music?
Okay. Spotify, SoundCloud,
and they search DrGoo?
Yeah, one word.
DrGoo again, listeners.
Google Play, iTunes, all the real ones. And Beatport's the big one, because sometimes I'll, like, release Beatport exclusive music, and so...
Oh, great, okay. And Pep, last words?
No.
All right, guys, thanks for listening to Nursery Podcast. Make sure you guys listen to this episodes and others on www.thirdclass.net or www.bullskit.com, where you can find a backlog of over 70 episodes. And make sure you guys check out the Orange Avocado. They sponsor us. It's raw, vegan, gluten-free desserts. Check them out on Facebook, and then search the Speaking of Music show on YouTube. They talk about the music of yesterday and today, and they also are a sponsor of the Nursery Podcast. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.